2 Kings, chapter 10. And Ahab has 70 sons in Samaria. And Jehu writes letters, and sends them to Samaria, to the heads of Jezreel, the elderly, and to those supporting Ahab, saying, And now, at the coming in of this letter to you, and the sons of your Lord are with you, and the chariots and the horses, and a fortified city, and the armor are with you, that you have seen the best and the most upright of the sons of your Lord, and have set him on the throne of his father, and fight for the house of your Lord. And they fear very greatly, and say, Behold, the 2 kings have not stood before him, and how do we stand, we? And he who is over the house, and he who is over the city, and the elderly, and those supporting, send to Jehu, saying, We are your servants, and all that you say to us, we do. We do not make anyone king. Do that which is good in your eyes. And he writes a letter to them a second time, saying, If you are for me, and are listening to my voice, take the heads of the men, the sons of your Lord, and come to me about this time tomorrow, to Jezreel. And the sons of the king are 70 men with the great ones of the city, those bringing them up. And it comes to pass at the coming in of the letter to them, that they take the sons of the king, and slaughter 70 men, and put their heads in baskets, and send them to him at Jezreel. And the messenger comes in and declares it to him, saying, They have brought in the heads of the sons of the king. And he says, Make them 2 heaps at the opening of the gate until the morning. And it comes to pass in the morning that he goes out and stands, and says to all the people, You are righteous. Behold, I have conspired against my Lord, and slay him. And who struck all these? Now you know that nothing falls of the word of Yahweh to the earth that Yahweh spoke against the house of Ahab. And Yahweh has done that which he spoke by the hand of his servant Elijah. And Jehu strikes all those left to the house of Ahab in Jezreel, and all his great men and his acquaintances and his priests, until he has not left a remnant to him. And he rises and comes in, and goes to Samaria. He is at the shepherd's shearing-house in the way. And Jehu has found the brothers of Ahaziah, king of Judah, and says, Who are you? And they say, We are brothers of Ahaziah, and we go down to greet the sons of the king, and the sons of the mistress. And he says, Catch them alive. And they catch them alive and slaughter them at the pit of the shearing-house, 42 men, and he has not left even 1 man of them. And he goes there and finds Jehonadab, son of Rechab, to meet him, and blesses him, and says to him, Is your heart right, as my heart is with your heart? And Jehonadab says, It is. Then it is, Give your hand. And he gives his hand, and he causes him to come up into the chariot to him. And he says, Come with me, and look on my zeal for Yahweh. And they cause him to ride in his chariot. And he comes to Samaria, and strikes all those left to Ahab in Samaria, until his destroying him, according to the word of Yahweh that he spoke to Elisha. And Jehu gathers the whole of the people, and says to them, Ahab served Baal a little, Jehu serves him much. And now all the prophets of Baal, all his servants and all his priests, call to me. Do not let a man be lacking, for I have a great sacrifice for Baal. Every one who is lacking, he does not live. And Jehu has done it in subtlety, in order to destroy the servants of Baal. And Jehu says, Sanctify a restraint for Baal. And they proclaim it. And Jehu sends into all Israel, and all the servants of Baal come in, and there has not been left a man who has not come in. And they come into the house of Baal, and the house of Baal is full, mouth to mouth. And he says to him who is over the wardrobe, Bring out clothing for all those serving Baal. And he brings out the clothing to them. And Jehu goes in, and Jehonadab, son of Rechab, to the house of Baal, and says to the servants of Baal, Search and see, lest there be any from the servants of Yahweh here with you, but only the servants of Baal by themselves. And they come in to make sacrifices and burnt offerings, and Jehu has set 80 men for himself in an outplace, and says, The man who lets any of the men whom I am bringing into your hand escape, his soul for his soul. And it comes to pass at his finishing to make the burnt offering, that Jehu says to the runners and to the captains, Go in, strike them, let none come out. And they strike them by the mouth of the sword, and the runners and the captains cast them out. And they go to the city, to the house of Baal, and bring out the standing pillars of the house of Baal, and burn them, and break down the standing pillar of Baal, and break down the house of Baal, and appoint it for latrine to this day. And Jehu destroys Baal out of Israel. Only not the sins of Jeroboam son of Nebat, that he caused Israel to sin. Jehu has not turned aside from after them, the calves of gold, that are at Bethel and in Dan. And Yahweh says to Jehu, Because that you have done well, to do that which is right in my eyes, according to all that is in my heart, you have done to the house of Ahab. The sons of the 4th generation sit on the throne of Israel for you. And Jehu has not taken heed to walk in the law of Yahweh, God of Israel, with all his heart. He has not turned aside from the sins of Jeroboam, that he caused Israel to sin. In those days Yahweh has begun to cut off some in Israel, and Hazael strikes them in all the border of Israel, from the Jordan at the sunrising, the whole land of Gilead, of the Gadite, and the Reubenite, and the Manassite, from Aror that is by the brook of Arnon, even Gilead and Bashan. And the rest of the matters of Jehu, and all that he did, and all his might, are they not written on the scroll of the chronicles of the kings of Israel? And Jehu lies with his fathers, and they bury him in Samaria, and his son Jehoahaz reigns in his stead. And the days that Jehu has reigned over Israel in Samaria are 28 years.